we'll go right to questions. I'm sure I probably talked enough at different times, and we just saw each other a little bit ago. So, what kind of questions you guys got?
Coach, after having a chance to look at film, how would you evaluate the offensive and defensive lines?
Well, I think we're on the offensive side. I think we started a little bit slow, but as we got into our rhythm, I thought we played a lot better. Remember, offensive line is how well you play together, right? The congruency of everybody working in the same direction, same speed, same efficiency, just being able to work together as a unit. And every year presents its own challenges across the country with every team, especially with ours. With the addition, especially with Blaze moving inside and some other people that we're working with to provide depth as well. So, but I thought they really did a good job as the game went on. Defensive line, I thought they did a nice job of being able to plug holes, stop the run first, and then be able to get pressure on the quarterback, even with a four-man rush. And I think that was a big emphasis for us in the offseason. We got to continue to do it, continue to get better. There's a lot of room for improvement. I mean, a ton on both sides of the ball. I'm not at all saying that it was an elite performance, but it was something that it's positive to build on. And I'm really excited about how Coach Callahan and Coach West and Coach Rossi are really making those two positions better every day.
What's the challenge of defending a Jeff Tedford offense?
There's a lot of challenges. They use everybody. And this is a direct compliment to Coach Tedford. Everywhere he's been, he's had elite quarterbacks. This is the same thing. Their quarterback at Fresno State is tremendous. I mean, Coach Tedford's been a part of, Trent Dilfer and Aaron Rodgers, and he's won everywhere he's been. And he can flip it pretty quickly based on the system he has and what he does. And they're a tough football team. This is a very, very good football team that's coming in here. This is a team that is picked by some media outlets to be the Group of 5 team that goes and plays in the New Year's Six Bowl. Very, very good team. Reminds me of a team possibly year 3 or year 4 at Western Michigan with what they have. They've got a great quarterback who I'm not comparing him. I think I made this public the other day. I'm not comparing him in talent-wise, so we're doing comparisons. I hate that, but this gives you a perspective of a Russell Wilson type in that they know he can run. They will run him, but they're not going to run him first in every play. But when he does, he's incredibly dangerous. But he wants to throw first. They do a great job of moving the launch points of where he throws from, so he's really never in the same place twice. And they make you catch him, and that's very difficult to do because he's throwing to 3 really dynamic wide receivers. And then defensively, they're just incredibly tough. The days of the Valley with Pat Hill and what they had going on there with the Carr brothers and what they were doing, it reminds me of that again. And they're very, very tough. They're very stingy. They're very disciplined in everything that they do. And that's a complete compliment to Coach Tedford and what he's done in his career and what he continues to do, even now, especially at Fresno State. They had the greatest turnaround last year, I think, in college football history, like the second greatest ever. And that's because of him and his staff. He's hired some amazing coaches who we know. And they're a really good football team, very dangerous.
Coach, last year you guys were the least penalized team in college football, and on Saturday you had 9. Which ones do you feel like need to be cleaned up, and how much can you tolerate penalties to a certain degree?
Well, I think after our game, I talked about the difference I thought of mental errors and then like football mistakes. We do everything we do just like everybody else. We send in plays that we agree with or disagree with. We send those in and to get explanations on them. But I'm not too worried about it. I don't think, when you look at you're the least penalized team, that can be a really good thing and a really bad thing. I've had coaches that have developed who, me as a coach, has said, you never want to be the the least penalized team in the country. That means you're not playing hard enough, which there's merit to that. But you don't want to be the most penalized team in the country because the discipline's not there. But we have, with the 30 kids on our 2-deep that are freshmen, they're going to make some mistakes. They might have to they might grab when they're not supposed to. Even though we're not supposed to, they might, So those are just things we have to continue to work through. But again, for the most part, the mental part of that I was happy with. But we definitely got to cut that down.
You mentioned it a little bit, but how has Blaze Andries transitioned inside?
Well, I think he's gotten so much better from even last year, from January, from the spring ball to the start of training camp. And that's what you want to see is just constant growth out of your football team. We've had constant growth out of every single player. I think that's very positive to see. I think I think every one of you can see that. when you look at it through our perspective. But he's very intelligent. He overanalyzes everything, which is a good thing. He's one of the smartest people we have on our team. He's going to be an actuary, right? I remember I didn't know what an actuary even was, and he wants to be that. So he's way smarter than his head football coach when you're talking about that, which is a really good thing because he's so intelligent. But at times he might overthink something and sit there and say, okay, well, and then you're looking at him like, man, I never even thought of that, so you shouldn't be thinking about that. Just do this, But he's a really special player, and he's going to be a really great player as we continue to go forward for our Gopher football team. But I think the mental part of it is slowed down a little bit for him, and he's able to play a lot better. He's going to get bigger. He's going to get stronger. He's only 19 years old. I mean, the kid's going to grow and get a lot better as he becomes a man. But I'm proud of the progress he's made.
What did you see out of Zach when you better look back at the New Mexico State game? And
Decisiveness, calmness, that poise. Like I said after the game, that reassured, kind of what we talked about. When you go back, I think one thing our football team, not just Zach, but in general, so many young guys who in high school, you win on Friday night, you wouldn't have meetings till Monday, maybe after school. And if you won, everybody was really excited. Your girlfriend was wearing your jersey on Friday. Things were great. When you got there Monday, you won. They kind of corrected some things. All the coaches were happy. You moved on to the next opponent. College football is a little bit different because you meet right after the game and you're critiquing everything. So everything we do is critiqued, and it's constructive criticism. So a lot of our young guys have to learn how to not take constructive criticism, but be able to know exactly when they walk into the building after a win or a loss, but you're going to be coached. Right? You're going to be about everything. Every inch, every detail is going to be looked at, evaluated, which is different than high school at times. Because sometimes a high school film, you're looking at it like, even when we watch recruiting film, did he catch that? Did he not catch that? Who is that guy? You don't even know the numbers half the time. So it's hard to be able to learn. Now we've got 4 different views. It's HD. You can see where their pinky is the entire play. So that's evolved. So looking at every inch, our whole team has to get better at that. But in terms of Zach, I was really proud of his poise, how he handled himself, how he was able to respond from the adversity that happened early. I thought he did a really nice job of that. Now he's got to continue to grow and get a lot better in a ton of areas. You're not able to really talk to him, but if you asked him, he'd give you a whole line of what was actually, good and bad, but probably more of the bad part of what he had to get better at.
Fresno had a couple block kicks for touchdowns. How much does that concern you, that part of their game?
Well, that's part of what they do. They got 2 touchdowns in the kicking game. They've got last week they got 2 touchdowns on defense with pick sixes. They were able to score quickly and score often on offense. Again, that makes them a very dangerous football team all across the board, not just special teams. But as coaching staff, you always look at every avenue: offense, defense, special teams. You come up with the best plan you possibly can. They provide a lot of challenges and present a lot of challenges for us, but we'll be ready for those.
Do you have a feel yet if the new fair catch rule on kickoffs will bring more touchbacks, fewer violent collisions? And
it's a great question.
Or do you think coaches and kickers will figure out a clever way to still pin teams within the 25?
Well, I think as we evolve with rules, right, you've always find new things as you continue to go through your years with the new rules. The first year of a new rule is always an interesting part, right? The first part of targeting, targeting was called every other second, in terms when targeting first came out in terms of the new rule changes until people adjusted to those. I got a chance to watch college football on Saturday afternoon for a little bit as a fan on TV, which rarely happens. And it was amazing. All the announcers were saying, we still haven't seen this fair catch. Whether game I was watching, they're like, I still haven't seen this fair catch. We might have seen one of them in our telecasts over the last, 48 hours. And I think that was a little surprising to me because I think we're going to take advantage of it. We got a chance to take advantage of it some different times, and I think we're going to continue to do that. But it all depends. If you're going to do that, it's not necessarily as a coach's perspective of the protective rule. That's a no-brainer. That's why the rule's invented. But now you've got to evaluate the kicker. What type of kicks are you going to get? Are you going to get a lot more squibs? Are you going to get a lot more sky kicks? Who's going to be catching those kicks? What are the weather conditions like? How hard is it? Because remember, when you still fair catch that ball, if I drop the ball on the 2-yard line, the ball's dead on the 2-yard line. I understand the rule. I respect the rule. But there's a little bit of that glitch to it as well, because if we're protecting the players and they want to fair catch it, but they drop it, more coaches are going to be like, well, I don't want that risk of having it on the 2-yard line, because if you drop the punt, okay, it's a live ball, and the players are right there on top of you when you catch a punt, though, right? They're already surrounding you. There's not one kickoff team in the country that can surround a deep kick and get there, but within 20 yards of the young man when he has a chance to make the catch. So, I think we've got to continue to evolve the rule. I like it. I think it's really good, but I think there's some things that coaches probably aren't as willing to do it yet because of the risk of dropping it. And I don't think that should, for what the rule is intended to do, I like it, but there's got to be some things that we clean up as coaches as we continue to move forward to help the game so we can call it more and feel better that we're doing that to be able to take the hits off, because I think it's a great rule. I really do.
More touchbacks seem to be the goal. Do you ever foresee a day when the kickoff will be no more?
I don't know if it'll be no more. I mean, I think it's still a big part of the game. I think it can change the game. It's very similar to a punt return. I mean, you look, there were so many punt returns, kick returns this week. I think when you start to look at that, that's a major part of the game, the special teams. And you look at Antoine Winfield Jr.'s kick return for us, his punt return. That's a big play in that game. So the kickoff part, I don't know if it'll ever be out of the game. I just think, again, if we can have the certain rules that make it worthwhile, maybe 25 is the right part, maybe 35 is the right part to do it. But again, I like the new rule. I think it protects our players, and that's the most important thing. I just think as we continue to go to make coaches call it more, that risk that I just talked about, I mean, you better trust that person back there an awful lot that ball's going to be caught. And kickoffs work a little bit different than punts, the way they spin and the way they get caught up in the air. But again, I think for the most part, I think it's a good rule, and I think kickoffs will be around for a while as long as we continue to make it safer.
Coach, with Blaze, do you see him maybe playing tackle at some point? And also, how do you evaluate his run blocking, his pass blocking right now?
Yeah, well, I think, again, there's a lot to improve on. I think I would evaluate it for him as the best he possibly can do up until this point. And that's all I can ask of our players. Give us everything you have up to this point and continue to show growth every single day. Do I think he's a tackle? I think he can play all positions. Remember, we had basically 4 guys healthy when we first got here on that offensive line. We'd like 18 on scholarship. You'd like to be able to have 3 full groups. We're not even close to having that yet. We were able to fill it with a little Band-Aid a little bit with taking 7 offensive linemen, but we're still not close to the scholarship numbers at that position that we need to be successful, to be able to move people around, to create the depth. And so you'd like to be able to see him move from guard to tackle. But again, that depends on what Curtis and Daniel become in the future, what other linemen we bring in here, how good Jason Dixon is for us in the future, so on and so forth. Right now, we have guys plugged into where they are. We have a little bit of depth, but not a lot. But we have more than we did last year. And I think where he's at is a good position for him right now. And then as he evolves and gets better, you could see him possibly moving outside.
What is Seth Green's role in this team? Wide receiver, tight end, the third string quarterback? Or
Yes. Yeah, all of them. I mean, he's I don't know much about tools, but he's got to be a tool that does everything. There's got to be some infomercial out there who's got a tool that does everything. I'm not into fixing much. Heather doesn't want me fixing much, or probably around the house. But he's kind of that Swiss Army knife where he's got a lot of different tools for us to be able to use. And I think he's seen a little bit of that. Now, the one thing is when players see that in their first bit, they're like, all right, that was 2 touchdowns. I'm going to have 3 the next game. Or we're going to do the X, Y, and Z. We just got to continue to be creative, do what the defense gives us, and be able to create opportunities for him to be able to show what he can do and help our football team.
How has he handled that, though? Because he came in as a quarterback and thought that was what his role was going to be, then converted to tight end, then wide receiver, and then shows up in a wildcat.
Yeah. I think he's handled it very well. I think he's handled it as a mature man. We sat down in my office, and Seth and I talked and said, Seth, you have 3 options. One, you can be the third string quarterback and probably not play unless in an emergency situation. Not get a lot of reps with the ones, be on the scout team. 2, you can transfer, you can leave, you can go somewhere else and play. If quarterback's what you really want, I'll support you and we'll help you. And I completely understand. I said the third is you can trust me, knowing that you have a lot of other skills than just the quarterback position, and you're too valuable to waste just as a third string quarterback. You can play on special teams. You can be an offensive player, a tight end, a wideout, a wildcat, a quarterback at different times, but give us a completely different element. And it didn't take him long. And of course, he's very close to his family too. But he was like, Coach, yeah, I'm in. I think I got to talk to my family first, though. I'm like, yeah, I want you to go home, talk to your family. But I hung on the words he said. I said, okay, you said you're in. Okay, I'm going to think this is a good thing. But I'm really excited for him. It just shows that we have to generate the offense with as young as football team as we have, especially on that side of very critical positions. We have to find different ways to generate points, generate offense. We didn't have the ability to do that last year. We have the ability to do that this year. But again, with 30 freshmen on your two deep and 28 playing last game, you start to see what type of football team this is. And the creativity for us has to be there as coaches.
Ottman Bell had a catch where he caught in traffic, took a pretty big hit, and held on to it. The more guys like him and Douglas and Bateman make plays like that, does that increase the confidence with the quarterback and the coaching staff that it just doesn't have to be Tyler Johnson that you throw the ball to?
Yeah, I mean, it builds our confidence more than not making the plays, right? And Chip, I really like our wideout core. And Chris Ottman Bell, I call him the crab, because his hands, the way when he catches a ball, I mean, we talk about like pounds of pressure on like alligators and sharks when they bite down. I mean, the way he catches a ball and how hard he squeezes when he has it, it's impressive. I haven't seen many people catch the ball like he does naturally. And not only him, but Demetrius Douglas starting to become a wideout that we need him to be there. Rashad Bateman, you got a chance to see what he can do, and you got a glimpse of it because I would have loved to see him break that tackle and that guy not be there, so you could actually see what type of speed that young man has. And then Ty, Ty's been a consistent player for us. I'd love to see him catch the third down to start it earlier for us because I think if he catches that third down pass, I think we get into our rhythm a lot faster. We're going to have to rely on a lot of young guys to get us into a rhythm and start fast. But that's okay. Those guys, they're just like Zach. They're 400-level thinkers. They're 400-level players already, which is the way you want. If you're going to play freshmen, you might as well play freshmen that are really ready. And they're ready. But they're just going to have to learn how to be able to play, how to be able to come off of failing, how to be able to play against these top corners in the country and the secondaries. But they're a very confident group, and I love what Coach Simon and Coach Shiraka are doing to make their strengths highlighted on game day and part of the game plan. And that's part of what we have to do. We want to get them all touches. How do we do that?
Cut up with the plays you showed the team yesterday. When did you start doing that? And then is it always kind of effort plays, or are there other categories based on the game?
Yeah, what I like to do as a head coach, I like to show effort plays. So I call myself the how coach at that moment, right? I'm the how and the culture coach at that time. And so whether it's win or loss, there's always positive you can pull from games. So in our team meeting, no matter what, before we get to our constructive criticism, I always like to be able to show what we did really well in our culture, our how, our heart, our passion, the way the game is supposed to be played. And so I always pick 3 clips, 1 offense, 1 defense, 1 special teams, and start my meeting with that. Because no matter if you win or lose, there's amazing examples that come off of that film that we can learn from to continue to grow. And with a young as inexperienced team as we have, they need to see that. They need to hear that. They need that positive reinforcement just as much as they need that constructive criticism. And I think that's true for any millennial generation young person. They need that positive reinforcement. And again, they need to listen to that's value, and that's very important information coming from the head coach at that particular moment. So I always usually start our team meetings. I've done that last year even the same way.
Coach, how did you see Zach's confidence grow throughout the game, and then afterwards, now that he's got his first collegiate win under his belt coming into this game?
I saw a lot of confidence, but I saw a lot of disappointment in a good way, where he felt like he could have been way better at that particular play. He wasn't. Some young quarterbacks that I've watched, they'll throw a pass, good or bad, they'll just be like, "Whew, I'm glad that one's over. What's the next play? Whew, thank gosh that one's over." He wasn't that way. You could tell when he missed the throw, it was like complete disappointment. Like he knew he could make the throw. And he knew he already heard me in his ear or Coach Shiraka in his ear, and he changed it already. And literally, I mean, after he dropped the fumble, which he's got to make that play, and he knows that. And he comes over, puts his hand on his shoulder, says, "Coach, we're going to be all right." That's the type of confidence he has. And that's very hard to find as a true freshman. Not only just a redshirt freshman, I'm talking a true freshman that just got here in January, to have that type of confidence that you're running the system and owning the team that much and taking accountability for your actions. Some guys will say, put the blame on somebody else. He takes it all upon himself. And that's very difficult to do when you don't have a lot of performance to back up your leadership.
A lot of that just kind of on some of those deep throws within the second half that he didn't quite hit.
Well, I think there's a few things. One, I think in a few throws, he did the right thing. He gave our players a chance to make a play on it. That's all we can ask. The ones that are overthrown, those are the ones you got to look at because our players don't even have a chance to make a play on that. So those are the way we evaluate deep balls. Did we have at least a chance to make a play on it? If we had a chance to make a play on it, did the wideout make the play? Did not make the play? Why not? If he had a chance to make a play on it, but it was out of bounds, that's an issue. Or if it's overthrown, we didn't have a shot at it. So we evaluate those throws that way.
There was a couple plays, looked like they might have gone for big plays, but Carter hustled and chased the guy down. Does that send a message to even the younger guys or the whole defense that this is kind of the standard of how you play?
Yeah, Chip, one of the plays Carter makes was part of, Andy, what you were talking about, the how clip. He comes off the backside, chases the guy down. The guy actually throws the ball to the opposite side. He runs back to the other side and makes the play for a shoestring tackle. And that's, he used our tackling circuit. He swept the ankle and made the play. But that's Carter Coughlin. He's an undersized defensive end, however people want to call it. I think he's got an oversized heart, and that's what it's all about. And we're going to have to find and continue to develop players like that, and I'm proud of him for that because he is an example of our culture and how hard you should play. And that play showed an example to everybody what the standard is and what the standard's becoming. We're having more and more of those plays now, Chip, than we did last year. It's harder to pick through 3. Last year, I was like, all right, I got to find 3. What's the closest as I possibly can get to 3? And that's not a disrespect. It was just harder to find. Now, knowing the culture, mastering the culture, I think they understand how hard the expectation is to play and how hard we practice. If you were at our practice today, which a lot of you probably weren't, none of you probably were, but it was one of the best practices we ever had. It was one of the most efficient, fast practices we ever had. Most energetic practices we ever had. And I even told the team, I told them, that was one of the best practices I've ever seen at any level. And that's a compliment to their learning how to do it. Now, does that promise you anything? No, but it gives you a better chance. And that's what we got to continue to add up those chances.
Coach, would you talk a little bit about how much it helps Zach to have a center like Jared with his line calls and other things that he does, his experience, his leadership?
It's a great question. Questions about Jared Weiler. I thought, Jared was one of our elite performers of the week. He's never going to be in a stat book. You can talk about crush blocks or elite blocks or knockdowns or pancakes. He calls an elite game. It's like a holder. You never know he's there until he makes a mistake. That's kind of like Jared. I don't think a lot of us appreciate how good Jared Weiler is at calling a game and getting us in the right call of what we need to be up front. The changing of the ID, the voice inflection, to be able to get the message to all 5, his body language, his volume reflecting confidence, and getting that to everybody in a very split second when something changes or the mic changes or the ID changes or the front changes. That's pretty impressive. So he called an elite game and did a really nice job. A lot of room for improvement in the physical part, but I thought he did a really nice job mentally.
What's the biggest hurdle Zach has to face in his second start? Is it more mental or is it physical because there's now tape out on him?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things just in general is, the biggest critic has to be yourself, nobody's going to put more pressure on myself than me. Nobody's going to put more pressure on Zach Annexted than Zach to get better every day. I think the biggest hurdle is ourselves. It's ourselves mentally, physically, and emotionally. Can he prepare better than he did week 1? Is he going to be able to prepare physically better than he did week 1, emotionally, and obviously athletically in terms of treatment? So is he going to be able to do all that? And is he going to bring everybody with him? Every week that'll be the same challenge. And I know what type of kid he is, but again, he's going to have to learn. And the only person that's going to know that is him. We'll have a really good idea. But at the end of the day, our players are being held accountable when they look in the mirror. Are you doing those things every single day to be the best you can be? Not only just with our football team, but academically, socially, and spiritually as well.
What's the ceiling for Rodney Smith? Does he have a chance to have a pretty special year?
I think Rodney's really special. I think Rodney, this is going to maybe sound a little bit different coming out of my mouth, but I think he's one of our most improved players. Everybody thinks, Rodney Smith is a great player, and he's been that, and he has been. But I think he's one of our most improved players. I think he's one of our most improved leaders. I think he's one of our most improved pass protectors. I think he's improved in his vision and his run game, his study habits, mastering the game, mastering the system, bringing the young guys with him. He can easily shut down He's got 3 months left of his Gopher career somehow, some way. He can shut down and move on and just get through and worry about him and let all the freshmen fend for themselves that he's got to lead. He does not do that. But I thought he had a really special game. It's hidden, just because, I don't know if he scored, but we also wanted to protect him too, And so I think he's got a chance to have a special. I always talk about one day life. He's got a chance to be special more today than he was yesterday. And if you can add all those up, yeah, to answer your question, he's got a chance to do that. But to put expectations on him and say you have to do this or I expect to do that, I think that's unfair to young people at times. They just have to get better today than they were yesterday. And he's piled those on across the last 12 months. And I'm really happy that he had a really good game because he deserved it.
Speaking of Ronnie Smith, he is ready and he's coming up next. Sid Hartman just texted me, said he's here as well. So we'll take one more, and Graham, I know you got
You were a group of 5 coach. What kind of mindset do you think Jeff Tedford and that team will have coming in on Saturday?
Yeah, I guarantee Jeff Tedford doesn't care he's in the group of 5. That's out the window. Because as a group of 5 coach, I didn't care. I didn't care. Group of 5, Power 5, MAC, Big Ten. It did not matter. And I think that's what makes him really special. You can tell. And I think if you limit your team to what people say they are, I don't think that's a very good coach. And I know he's not doing that. He's a dangerous football coach in a very, very positive way. He's one of those coaches that, you enjoy competing with because you know how good he is. And he's got a really, really elite football team. But he at Western Michigan, when we were going through it, we always talked about when you control yourself, you control your opponent. And we didn't worry about whoever we were facing. And I think that's what made us really good. That team was mature enough to understand that and do it. His team is mature enough, and I think understands that enough they're going to control themselves. They're not talking about the Gophers except an X and an O. They're not talking about that. They're talking about how they have to continue to get better, which we're talking to our football team the same way. So, but they're a dangerous football team, a really, really, really dynamic football team. And we've got a tremendous challenge and an opportunity coming up here on Saturday evening.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate everybody. Row the boat. Sky your mom. Go Gophers. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going this way. Sid's over here. We'll have Ronnie Smith here in a moment.